I never imagined that I'd end up here, sitting in this bleak, emotionless room at a nursing home, retelling the twisting tale of my life. Life can change in a split second, can't it? One moment, you're standing at the altar in a quaint little church in San Francisco, heart swelling with love and head brimming with dreams. The world seems perfect, the future a canvas, your happiness the paint. I can still recall that sunlit day, the warmth of the California sun on my face, the fresh fragrance of roses that adorned every pew. I was so naive then, believing that I had the world at my fingertips, all my dreams laid out for the taking. If someone had come to me on that radiant day and told me that I would end up raising Samuel and Luke alone, that I'd be abandoned by my husband, that the children I devoted everything to would betray me, I'd have laughed, certain it was some cruel, absurd joke. But the truth is, life often plays tricks far crueler than any nightmare we dare to imagine. It's like a ride in the dark, sharp turns and unseen drops that leave you breathless, gasping for air, sometimes robbed of all hope. I remember the years I spent dreaming of a family life, the white picket fence, family barbecues on lazy Sunday afternoons, laughter echoing as we watched fireworks at Disneyland. But dreams are fragile, they shatter easily, like glass ornaments falling from the tree. And that's exactly what happened to me. I found myself drowning, grasping for a lifeline that wasn't there. Kenneth was my world, or so I thought. Until the day I returned home, only to find a hastily scribbled note in his place, his clothes gone, his scent still lingering like a ghost in our home. "I'm leaving, Emily," it read. "She doesn't want other kids, just her own. I have to be with her." I still remember the cold, dead feeling I felt as my eyes read that word, over and over again, as if somehow seeing it 100 times would make it mean something different. She had a name, but in my memory, she'll always be her, the shadow that took everything I cherished. He was gone, and suddenly, I was alone with 2 boys to raise, 2 fragile souls depending on me to be everything. The boys were young then. Samuel was just 16, trying to navigate high school, and little Luke barely 6, still unaware of the harsh reality we found ourselves in. Kenneth promised financial help, but that promise never turned into anything real. We didn't see him again, no visits, no support, just empty words on paper. And when those divorce papers arrived, with Kenneth giving up his parental rights, it was like being hit by a tidal wave. Relief mingled with devastation, my hands trembling as I signed, thinking, how could he do this to us? How could he abandon the very family he promised to cherish forever? I looked at my boys, trying to muster all the strength I had left. Samuel, trying to be brave, always asking, "We're going to be okay, right, Mom?" Luke, too young to understand, still felt the absence, a missing puzzle piece in his innocent life. I knew I had to be everything: mother, father, protector, provider. I burned the midnight oil, working countless jobs, picking up every shift I could find, determined to give my boys a life as close to normal as possible. I told them, "You deserve the best," as I signed them up for activities, trying to fill every moment with happiness, to make them forget that they'd been left behind. I took jobs that no one else wanted, cleaning offices late into the night, working in diners, anything that could pay the bills. I became adept at hiding my exhaustion, putting on a smile that didn't reach my eyes, just so my boys could feel a semblance of security. I remember coming home after 12-hour shifts, my feet aching, my hands raw from scrubbing floors, but seeing Luke's smile, seeing Samuel trying to cook dinner, made it worth it. They were my world, and I would do anything for them. But slowly, as the years passed, my sacrifices seemed to slip into the background, taken for granted by my sons. I was always the one giving. I was the constant, the unwavering, the dependable. And they took. They grew up, and they grew apart from me. When Samuel reached his teenage years, he started changing, anger simmered beneath his words, disrespect laced every argument. Luke followed suit, his sweet innocence replaced by a brashness that frightened me. It was as if I was no longer their mother, but just a means to an end. They wanted, no, demanded, and I kept giving, even as I felt the weight crushing me. I remember one particular night, when Samuel was 18. He had come home late, the smell of alcohol on his breath.
Someone else.
I confronted him, worried, scared for him. He lashed out, his words sharp as daggers. Why do you care, Mom? You can't control my life. Dad left because of you, remember? His words cut deeper than anything Kenneth had ever said or done. I stood there, speechless, tears streaming down my face as Luke watched from the shadows, his young eyes wide with fear. That night, I cried myself to sleep, wondering where I had gone wrong, how my sweet boy had turned into someone I could barely recognize. It only grew worse as time passed. My once loving boys turned into young men who saw me as an inconvenience, a burden. The house that once echoed with laughter turned into a battleground. Arguments, accusations, manipulations, they played the blame game expertly. And the weapon they wielded was always Kenneth. He left because of you, Mom, they'd shout, the words cutting into me like a blade. I'd stand there, taking the blows, wondering where I had gone wrong. Had I failed them? Was I too soft? Too strict? Too absent? Too much of something, or not enough of anything? The guilt was a constant companion, whispering in my ear late at night, drowning out any hope of peace. Then came the illness. I was diagnosed with a condition that required care, attention, something my boys were unwilling to provide. And that's when they showed their true colors. It wasn't concern that crossed their faces, it was fear that they would have to step up, take responsibility. They concocted a plan, first sweet words, false promises, then insisting I sign over everything to them. It's for your own care, Mom, they said, their eyes cold, distant. They wanted the house, the money, even my old car. They divided everything, and I, tired, broken, and alone, gave in. I remember the day they took me to this place, this waiting room for the end, as I call it. The look of relief on Samuel's face as they dropped me off, Luke barely able to meet my eyes. You'll get the care you need here, Mom, Luke muttered, his voice empty. And then they left, the door clicking shut behind them, the sound echoing in my ears. They never looked back, not even once. 3 years have passed since then. 3 years of silence, of empty days blending into one another, a monotonous blur of the same four walls. And they never came. Not once. Not a phone call, not a visit. They were busy, they said, too occupied with their own lives to check on the woman who had given everything for them. I've stopped reaching out, stopped waiting for an explanation that will never come. Sometimes, silence is the clearest answer of all. But then, out of nowhere, they came back. Samuel and Luke, standing at the door of my room, looking so out of place. I sat there, watching them, wondering what they could possibly want. They shifted, uncomfortable under my gaze, trying to smile. We missed you, Mom, Samuel said, his voice shaky. The words hung in the air, empty, hollow. I didn't believe them, and they knew it. As they fumbled for conversation, I could sense an urgency in their questions. They weren't here for me, they were here for something else. And then Luke, ever the impulsive one, blurted it out. We heard about Uncle Tyler's inheritance. I almost laughed, the bitterness rising up like bile. So that was it. They thought there was money, something worth coming back for. I looked at them, my heart aching. Uncle Tyler lost everything, I said, watching the shock on their faces, the disbelief. There's no inheritance,
The pain of Emil
There's
and
nothing.
Amali's betrayal lingered.
Their
a
faces
dull
fell,
ache in her
the hope
chest.
vanishing,
Memories of
replaced
their
by
time together
confusion,
would surface
anger.
unexpectedly,
And then I
bringing with
told
a
them,
wave of
told them how I
sadness.
had set it
But
all
she
up,
learned to
the
acknowledge
notary's
the pain
assistant,
without
the
letting it
story,
consume her.
everything.
But Renee refused
I wanted
to
to
let
see
it
if you
define
cared
her.
for me,
She made
not
new
for what I
friends,
could give you,
people who
I
brought
said,
joy
my
and
voice
laughter
trembling
into her
with the weight
life.
of the
They
truth.
became her support system,
I watched as the
her new
realization
family in
dawned
this
on
foreign
them, the
city.
shock, the
People
shame.
who knew nothing of her past,
I've
who saw
rewritten
her
my
for who
will,
she was in
I
the
continued,
present.
excluding
They accepted
both
her
of you.
without judgment,
Luke stood
allowing her
up,
to be
his
herself
face
without the
pale,
weight of
his
her
hands
history.
trembling.
Ghosts never truly
He
leave.
turned and walked
The
out,
news came like a
Samuel
punch to the
following,
gut.
their
Renee
silence
felt the
louder
breath
than
leave
any
her
words
lungs,
they could
the
have
room
spoken.
tilting precariously.
I watched them go,
Emil,
a strange
gone.
sense of peace
The name
washing over
echoed in
me.
her mind, a
It was
haunting
done.
reminder of a chapter she
The
thought she had
ties were
closed, her
severed, the
suspended
burden
in a void
lifted.
of disbelief and sorrow.
Days turned into
She
weeks,
sank into
and
a
then
chair,
one
her
day,
mind
they
racing
came
through
back.
memories, both bitter
Not
and
for
you leave
money,
her with so
not
many
for anything
unresolved
but me.
feelings, so many
They came
unanswered
with gifts,
questions,
with
a
apologies,
life cut
with
short,
tears.
a future unwritten.
They came to take
Renee
me
thought of all
home.
the plans they had made,
And slowly,
the dreams
cautiously,
they had shared.
I let
now
them
they
back
were
in.
nothing more than fragments
It
of a
wasn't
shattered
easy.
past.
Trust is like
Pieces of a
glass,
puzzle that would
once
never be
shattered,
completed.
it's never the same.
But also a
But they
resurgence
tried,
of anger,
and for the
a
first
bitter
time in
taste in her
years,
mouth.
I saw
He
my
had
boys
shattered her
again,
world,
not the
and
selfish
now he
men
was
they had
gone,
become,
leaving
but
her
the
to pick
children
up
I
the
had
pieces.
loved, the ones who
anger
had
was a
once
familiar
clung to me,
companion,
trusting me
one
to
she
make
tried to
everything
bury,
right.
but now resurfaced with
We
a
have a long
vengeance.
road
He
ahead,
had shattered
my
her
sons and
world,
I.
and now he was gone,
The wounds
leaving
are
her to
deep,
pick up
the scars
pieces.
permanent.
She looked around her apartment,
But as I sit
at the
here,
remnants of their
surrounded
life
by
together,
laughter, by the
broken
warmth
glass
of
on the
family,
floor,
I
abandoned
realize that
projects,
maybe,
and old
just
photographs
maybe,
that seemed
it's
to mock
not
her
too late.
pain. Then came
We've
the
been
call
through the
from her
fire,
mother.
but we've come
Amelie
out
was
stronger.
struggling, unable to cope
And
with
that,
Emil's death.
I think,
Renee
is the
was
greatest
needed.
inheritance I could
Renee
ever leave them,
hesitated.
not money,
She had
not
distanced
property,
herself from her
but the
family for a
knowledge that
reason,
love,
and now
true
they were
love,
pulling her back
can
into the
withstand
chaos she
even
had
the
tried
darkest
so
of
hard
days.
to escape.
Months
Amelie was
passed after I
struggling,
moved
unable
back
to cope
home,
with Emil's
and we
death.
began to settle
Renee
into
was
a new
needed.
routine,
Renee
one marked
hesitated.
by tenderness,
Part of her wanted to
effort,
scream
and
to tell her mother
understanding.
that this was their mess to clean
Samuel
up,
and
that she
Luke
wanted
made it a
nothing
point
do
to
with
come
them,
by
with any of
regularly.
it. But another
Samuel
part of her,
would come
a
in
small
after
ember of
work,
compassion,
tired but
flickered to
always with a
life.
smile, and
Amelie
Luke,
was her sister.
my once brash
Part of
boy,
her wanted
would
to
bring
scream,
flowers,
to tell her
daisies,
mother
my
that this was
favorite.
their mess to clean up,
He'd joke
that she
about
wanted
not
nothing
knowing
to do
how
with
to
them,
pick
with
flowers,
any of it.
but I
She
knew.
had her own
I knew
life,
he was
her own
trying.
struggles.
It
Why
wasn't
should she be the
always
one to
easy.
fix what was broken?
There were
But
days when the
another part
pain of what
her,
had been
a
said
small
and
ember
done
of
lingered like a
compassion,
shadow,
flickered to life.
days when I found it
Amalie
hard
was
to
her
look at
sister,
them without
but
feeling
another
the sting
part
of betrayal.
her, a small ember of compassion,
But there were good
flickered
days
to
too,
life.
days when I
Amelie
saw
was her
glimmers of the
sister,
love we had
and
once
despite
shared,
everything, blood
untainted
ran
by the
thicker than
greed and
water.
resentment that
Family
had torn us
ties, no matter
apart.
how strained, had a way
One
of
evening, as we sat in the living room, Samuel turned to me, his expression serious. "Mom," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I know it will take time, but I want to earn your trust back. I know I can't undo the past, but I promise you, I'll spend every day trying." I looked at him, tears welling in my eyes. I could see the sincerity in his gaze, the regret that weighed heavily on his heart. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to believe in him, to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. Luke, who had always been more reserved, more guarded, nodded, his own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "For everything. For leaving you, for not being there when you needed us. I know I can't change what I did, but I want to be better. I want to be the son you deserve." In that moment, I realized that this was the true inheritance I could leave them, not money or possessions, but the chance to grow, to change, to become better people. And as I pulled them both into my arms, holding them close, I knew that we still had a long way to go. But we were together, and that was all that mattered. As the months turned into years, our family began to heal. Samuel and Luke took turns helping me with the household chores, and we began to share meals together again. The laughter that had once been lost slowly returned, filling the house with warmth and hope. We talked about everything, the past, the pain, the mistakes we had made, and in doing so, we began to let go of the resentment that had once consumed us. One winter evening, as we sat by the fire, Samuel turned to me, a smile playing on his lips. "Do you remember those trips to Disneyland, Mom?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with nostalgia. I nodded, my heart swelling with emotion. I remember, I replied softly. Those were some of the happiest days of my life. Luke, who had been quiet, spoke up, his voice filled with determination. Let's do it again, he said, his eyes meeting mine. Let's make new memories, ones that we can cherish. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at my boys, my heart brimming with love. In that moment, I knew that we had come full circle. We had been through the fire, but we had emerged stronger, closer, and more determined to hold on to the love that had once been lost. And so, we went to Disneyland. It wasn't the same as it had been all those years ago. We were older, a little more worn, a little more scarred. But as we stood there, watching the fireworks light up the sky, I realized that it didn't matter. What mattered was that we were together, that we had found our way back to each other, that we had learned to forgive, to let go, and to love again. As the fireworks burst overhead, I looked at Samuel and Luke, my heart swelling with pride. They had made mistakes, we all had. But they had also chosen to change, to grow, to become better men. And that, I knew, was the greatest gift they could ever give me. Life is full of twists and turns, of heartbreak and hope. But as I stood there, surrounded by my boys, I knew that we had finally found our way home. And that, I think, is the true meaning of family, not perfection, not wealth, but love, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings. Life has a funny way of surprising us, just when we think we've settled into our happy ending. A few months after our Disneyland trip, we received an unexpected letter. It was from a law firm, and it was addressed to me. The letter stated that Kenneth, my estranged ex-husband, had passed away. I hadn't thought of Kenneth in years, not since the day he left. He had vanished from our lives without a trace, and I had buried the pain deep within me. But now, his death brought everything rushing back. The letter went on to say that Kenneth had left something behind for Samuel and Luke, an inheritance. My boys were stunned. They hadn't heard from their father in so long that they had almost forgotten him. But now, here he was, reaching out from beyond the grave, leaving behind a legacy that we hadn't expected. The lawyer wanted to meet with us to discuss the details, and as we sat around the kitchen table, the air was thick with tension. Do you think we should go? Samuel asked, his voice uncertain. He looked at me, searching my face for an answer. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse, to leave Kenneth and his money in the past where they belonged. But another part of me, a part that I couldn't ignore, wanted closure. I wanted to know why he had left, why he had abandoned us, why he had chosen to reach out now, after all this time. We should go, I finally said, my voice steady. We need to know. And so, we went. The meeting with the lawyer was surreal. Kenneth had left behind a significant amount of money, more than I had ever imagined he had. He had also written a letter, addressed to me. The lawyer handed it to me, and as I held it in my hands, my heart pounded. I opened the letter, the paper trembling as I read the words written in Kenneth's familiar handwriting. Dear Emily, it began. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I know that what I did was unforgivable. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. I was weak, and I made mistakes. I chose the easy way out, and I've regretted it every day since. I hope that this money can help make up for some of the pain I caused. I know it's not enough, but it's all I have to give. Tears filled my eyes as I read his words. I had spent so many years hating Kenneth, resenting him for what he had done. But now, in this moment, I felt something else, something unexpected. I felt sorrow. Sorrow for the man he had been, for the love we had lost, for the family that had been broken. I looked at Samuel and Luke, their faces filled with a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, sadness. And I realized that this was our chance, our chance to finally let go of the past, to forgive, to move forward. We'll take it, I said, my voice steady. Not because we need the money, but because we need to let go of the anger. We need to forgive, for our own sake. And so, we did. We took the inheritance, and we used it to build a new future. We donated part of it to a charity for single mothers, in honor of the struggle I had faced. We used the rest to create new memories, to travel, to explore, to live. And as we did, we found that the weight we had been carrying for so long began to lift. Life is unpredictable. It's full of twists and turns, of heartbreak and hope. But as I stand here now, looking at my sons, I know that we've come a long way. We've faced the darkness, and we've come out on the other side. We've learned to forgive, to let go, to love again. And that, I think, is the greatest gift of all, the gift of a second chance, the gift of a new beginning. We may be scarred, we may be bruised, but we are stronger. We are a family, bound not by perfection, but by love. And as long as we have each other, I know that we can face whatever comes our way. Because in the end, it's not about the money, or the mistakes, or the regrets. It's about the love that endures, the love that never gives up, the love that brings us home.